Hello and welcome to the Franchise Tag Podcast with me, your host, Freddie Hall, joined by Andrew and Adam once again. You can clearly see we are in the festive spirit. And tonight we're going to decide, are you on the naughty list? Are you on the nice list? Because gifts are going to be given out. We've got a Green Bay Packers Christmas top. We've got a Rockin' Robin Christmas junker. And we've got a Tinsel Tits Christmas jumper. We are truly in the festive spirit here at the Franchise Tag Podcast. And I mean, you've got to be in the NFL spirit as well. What a weekend of games we had. Saturday was phenomenal. The biggest comeback in history by the Minnesota Vikings against the Indianapolis Colts. Hence why there is no George Edgerton in sight today on the podcast. I think he's gone into hiding for the festive period. But like I said, and as the line of the episode, the header of it and the Oscar goes to, we're going to be talking about the awards for the players in the NFL. So we're going to talk about the MVP, the Offensive Player of the Year, the Defensive Player of the Year, the rookies for them positions as well, the Comeback Player of the Year, and the Coach of the Year as well. Lots to talk about in the lead up to Christmas. It's a busy week for us. We've got the show tonight, we've got the fantasy show tomorrow, and the betting preview show on Thursday. We're doing it early because we know Christmas is only around the corner. So we'll kick it off with the MVP race. It is a heated race. There has been the Pro Bowl votes that have been happening as well. Certain tweets have been out there about who's leading that. Tua is one person that has been leading some of the votes. Sauce Gardner as well. But MVP is the most prestigious award in the NFL voting. And Andrew, why don't you kick us off with who you believe the MVP for the season is at the minute?
It's a really tough one, isn't it, for the MVP? There's a few candidates for me that I want to put forward, want to talk about. I don't think it's an outright done deal for anybody. I think most people are really looking at Pat Mahomes for this one, but I would like to say that for me, it's Joe Burrow. I know the odds are going to be quite low for him, but for me, he's my MVP for the year. The stats are there to back him up, and I think he really puts his team on his shoulders and really pushes and elevates that team, and that's what makes an MVP, doesn't it?
Wow, Joe Burrow, that is not... if I was swinging the bat, I'd be missing every time of what I thought you were going to say to begin with that. Adam, I mean, bounce on to you. Talk about Joe Burrow maybe being the MVP and who your candidate is.
Yeah. Why?
You've gone in shock. You've gone in shock.
Oh, yeah, why? I'm intrigued.
Why? I mean, why not?
No, that's not an answer.
He's fourth in the category for passing yards. I think he's got a ratio of 31 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Completion percentage is good. And like I said, when you're talking MVP, it's not just about stats. Freddie's always spoke about this. It's who's the most valuable player for that team. And for me, he elevates that team. And if you take him out of the equation, that team's nothing. And I think he's really put the team on his back. He's the reason they push forward and win games, and he's going to be the reason that they got a shot to go all the way to the Super Bowl again. So for me, that makes you an MVP. I know he's not going to be leading any of the betting odds or anything like that, but that's what our own opinions are for, aren't they? And I can't split what makes a difference between him, Mahomes, Hurts, and Tua, other than the fact what I see from Burrow week in, week out on the field.
He's had a lot of injuries as well, hasn't he? In terms of like Jamar Chase, Joe Mixon's been missing, and he's still been able to win games.
Yeah, I think what's I kind of get what you're saying. I'm not like completely against it. The thing is what I feel with that is I feel like you could probably say exactly the same thing for the other three, which is basically Mahomes, Hurts, and Allen as well. So it's a really difficult one. So when you say that the stats don't come into it, it's kind of like that's the only way you can really sort of differentiate them.
The stats are there to back up that he should be in the conversation, is what I'm saying. I led with the stats being there, and then on top of that, I feel like that's the reasons. And yeah, you can say that for the other names that are involved in this conversation. Which is why I said it's really hard of a race for me, and I'm not sure will Hurts drop out of the race now? He's picked up an injury. Will we start to forget about what he's done if he misses a couple of games?
I mean, he shouldn't, but as you are right. He potentially will miss a couple of games, which would probably hurt his ability to win this. I know that not that long ago, and I'm talking like probably last weekend or like this time last week, Hurts had suddenly become favourite for the MVP race. He's not now because of the injury, so Mahomes is. So yeah, I think it's very difficult. I think it's very difficult to come out and say that specific guy is the one who's going to win it, because yeah, obviously if Cincinnati don't have Burrow, they're going to be a much poorer team. Well, guess what? So's Buffalo, Kansas City, and Philadelphia. I mean, it's kind of a similar thing. So to me, I feel like you almost have to go on stats a little bit, and that's probably why Hurts will drop out. I think with that in mind, it's probably Mahomes, to be honest. I think there was a lot of doubt around the Kansas City Chiefs at the beginning of this season. I think they've very much put that to bed, that they're still the best team easily in that division. And aside from, I don't know, I mean, you've got Cincinnati, you've got Buffalo, but even still, I still feel like the Chiefs are the ones that are the most consistent. They consistently win. When things go wrong, Mahomes is the one who seems to be able to sort of drag that team into a win. Whereas I feel like you've seen, especially with Josh Allen this year, that when things have gone wrong, maybe he hasn't quite been able to do it as much as what Mahomes can. Yeah, Burrow's been good and deserves to be part of it, but to me, I think it'll probably go to Mahomes, and it probably should go to Mahomes.
I would also agree with the Pat Mahomes one. And again, I'm leading on what Adam's just said there. He leads the league in yards. And when we're talking about the stats, leads the league in yards with 4,496, leads the league in touchdowns with 35. And I think it's interesting to note, and you say about Burrow putting the team on his back and winning games. I think Mahomes does the same thing with Kansas City. Like, you know, they lost Tyreek Hill. Yes, Travis Kelce's still there. It's probably one of the most threatening duo in NFL is Mahomes Kelce for a lot of people. But you got to remember, Mahomes' wide receiving unit, McCall Hardman, MVS, Juju Smith-Schuster, these are not top names. These are not number one receiver guys, and he's still making them look like number one wide receivers. So
they're all new as well.
They're all new, yeah, and then the running game as well. You know, Pacheco's been decent, I admit, and has come out of nowhere. But Clyde Edwards-Hilaire's had injury problems and hasn't been great. So, as much as the Chiefs are a great team, a lot of that I think this year is Mahomes putting it on his back a little bit. Obviously, both are helped with decent defenses, but Bengals' defense probably been better than the Chiefs' defense, really. And I think it is a shame that Hurts is sort of slipping out of it, but my argument is Mahomes makes Burrows makes their players better. I think the players are making Hurts better for the Eagles. I think the players are making the quarterback, whereas the quarterback is making the players for them teams. And the one person I'm not in the conversation is I think Tua is a massive example of that. I think the players that Tua has are making him this excellent quarterback this year. I don't think you can argue that. Like as much as I think Hurts has been great this year and his running capability is fantastic. AJ Brown's been a huge factor. Has been a huge factor. Devontae Smith taking that step up, been a huge factor. Like these players are making the quarterback there, and that's not deterring away from what Hurts has done this year, because he has been sensational. But he has had a lot of help around him, more help than Burrow and Mahomes, I think. So let's move on to Offensive Player of the Year. Adam, I'll bounce to you this one here. Traditionally, MVP Offensive Player of the Year has been the same, but in recent years it has sort of MVP's been the lead one. Then they've sort of given like a non-QB the Offensive Player of the Year award. Who would you be going for?
So I think for me, really, when it comes to the offense, I think unfortunately, because this is horrific to come out and say whilst wearing a Green Bay, I mean, it's just, why did you come to me first? I mean, it's just horrific. I think it probably is going to have to be Justin Jefferson, to be honest. I just think that he has shown he's miles ahead when it comes to, well, aside from Tyreek Hill, he's miles ahead when it comes to receiving yards. I think he's shown what he can do for that team where, you know, I mean, just on Saturday night, you know, a lot of people will come out and say that Kirk Cousins sort of stepped up a little bit in the second half, but I mean, that was pretty much Justin Jefferson that was doing most of that work and really sort of like got everything going and helped to whip that crowd up and just all in all got it going really well for them. I think he's not the guy who's going to get you the most touchdowns. He's not kind of necessarily going to be a double-digit touchdown every single season, but it's just like he's just very, very good, and he's very, very good at sort of getting them kind of 20-plus chunk plays. That's the other thing. That's what he's best at. You look at it; he's had 47 this year. Tyreek's the closest at 41. Just most receptions, most yards. Just been really, really good, and I think I would be surprised if it went anywhere else. I think you do have to mention Tyreek as well, because he's been in a new team and he's really hit the ground running there. So I think you do have to mention him. But I think Justin Jefferson's probably the guy for it.
Andrew, move on to you. Are you sticking with the wide receiver in Minnesota?
I mean, look, I tried to be a bit controversial with the MVP one and try and argue a point with that one. I don't think I can argue out of Justin Jefferson getting the award. What I can do is put a name forward that I feel is going to be overlooked. He was overlooked 2 years ago when I brought him up. And when we talk about a player at their position and breaking all the records, I think you've got to say, why does Travis Kelce not get a mention for Offensive Player of the Year? The guy is on target to break the record for receptions, yards, and touchdowns this year. He's already got 91, 1,144, and 12 touchdowns. He's on to shatter all the records at that position, which I think most of them are his anyway. So I kind of got to be like, why is he not? Look, Adam didn't even mention him, when he was talking about people who might be close to him in the race. This guy is single-handedly above everybody else in the category of who is the best at his position. And it's an offensive position. And when we say, oh, that person's been the best wide receiver, they deserve it. That person's been the best running back, they deserve it. This guy doesn't get talked about. So I would like to say his stats are there and his performance values there to be in the conversation of Offensive Player of the Year. But it is Justin Jefferson, isn't it? The guy's making catches he shouldn't catch. And he is that team. They wouldn't have the record they've got now if it wasn't for Jefferson. We say it every week. He is just obscenely good and he's having a great year. So Justin Jefferson deserves it, but I wanted Kelce to have a bit of a shout out.
I remember the podcast we did when we did this sort of podcast a couple of years ago, and you said Kelce, and I was like, oh, what do you mean, like Kelce? And he said he's smashing records, he's getting the touchdowns. And again, when we talked about Mahomes winning MVP, Kelce is that team in terms of their offensive when they're driving down the field. He does the same things as Jefferson. He gets the chunk plays, he moves the ball down, and he gets the touchdowns at the right time. But I do love Justin Jefferson. I just think it was like you said, Andrew, when we started. The stats are all there, but I don't just love the stats. He puts this team on his back. And if he sticks to the trajectory that he's on at this age, he will be the next great NFL great at the position, I think, because he makes the catches that no one else can make. He gets the yards. Yeah, right. He's not getting touchdowns. He's only got 7 this year, and that's joint 7/4, however you want to look at it in the league at the minute. But the guy he turns on a dime, and that's what's so great. Probably about talking about today is Saturday, it turned on a dime because of him. Yes, Cousins stepped up, but big players make big moments in big games. And Justin Jefferson does that every other week. Big games, big players come out, and he never shies away from that at all. And I don't think Jefferson is the entire Vikings offense, because I think Dalvin Cook is very good. I think Thielen definitely has his moments as well. But when you talk about just a guy who can erupt the crowd, can make them chunk plays and move his team down the field, you've got to give Jefferson that credit. And there's not many catches he doesn't make. There's not many one-on-ones he doesn't make. There's not many games where he doesn't get the yards. And really, there's a lot to be said when one player is a chunk of your wins in a year. And Jefferson is what, at least 4 or 5 wins of the Vikings this year is because of him. And I think the rest of the team have equally added to that. But Jefferson is a large reason for this. He's still so young, but if it was ever a year where he wasn't going to get it, because I think he's going to be in the conversation for a lot of years to come, I think now is the year that Kelsey should win it, because I think Kelsey is older. He is getting to that, though he's hitting the peak and sticking there, really. He's not really taking the downhill spiral like players that hit their peak do. Kelsey is definitely in the conversation this year. I have to agree with you, Andrew.
Adam, you got any thoughts on Kelsey even being mentioned for it?
Well, I mean, you're so wrong. It's just untrue. I mean, it's like you're.
What do you mean he's so wrong?
So Kelsey's, well, purely from a status point of view, he's miles off.
Tight end.
At tight end, yeah. He isn't.
But it doesn't matter because you're lumping everyone in together. Okay. That's the whole point.
Right, I get it there.
You say
you're lumping everyone in.
But you'll give it to a running back if the running back breaks the rushing yardage, but there's a better wide receiver.
I just think if you're going to put them all together in one thing for Offensive Player of the Year, you kind of have to have everything together. And the fact is that Kelsey has had about 500 yards less than Jefferson. He's had about 20 targets less than Jefferson. He's done about half the amount of plus 20-yard plays than Jefferson. I know it's a different position and it's a different thing, but that's why he doesn't win. And that's why he's not in the conversation.
But don't you think it's criminal? Isn't it criminal that probably the greatest tight end in history, smashing his own records, has never won the award?
Or in the conversation?
It's how it's done, though, isn't it? I mean, it's all right coming out and saying that he's the greatest at his position, or potentially one of the greatest at his position. But if you're going to put everyone in together, then it's just not going to happen. He's not going to get mentioned. And I mean, you can mention it, but I'll tell you what, if you look at the MVP, right, everyone goes on about MVP, how it's always a quarterback. Right, that's it. There's only 3 guys in the betting for MVP that aren't quarterback: Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, and Josh Jacobs. They're the only 3. And that's, so Kelsey's not even mentioned in that, despite the fact that he's on course to break records and stuff like that, because although he is, and he is great and one of the greatest to play in that position, it's insignificant compared to what Justin Jefferson's done this year, and so therefore he doesn't get in the conversation.
Insignificant.
It is.
Wow.
Compared to that, if you just on the stats, it's insignificant, and that's the problem. He's the biggest thing on their offense. Hey?
Did I not start the conversation with Justin Jefferson is the leader?
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm just saying he doesn't even get mentioned. And that's why.
I think it's a travesty. I think it should be judged on what you do at your position in when it comes to Offensive Player of the Year, not everybody lumped in together. I think we talk about, that person deserves it because they broke the wide receiver record for the most receptions or whatever. It's like, well, hang on, this guy's done it at his position. So I just think it's travesty that you can't be judged on your position, because you essentially can never win it, can you? So that's to say for D lineman, isn't it? Really? But.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on to D lineman first. So Defensive Player of the Year. I'll start off of this one. I was really torn here because I got sucked into the stats a little bit, because I had a player straight in mind straight away, and then I looked at the stats and I was like, oh wait, like that plays in there as well. So my Defensive Player of the Year is Micah Parsons, but I can completely understand why Nick Bosa may be a Player of the Year, because Bosa is top in sacks with 15.5, and tackles for losses joint second. Parsons is 4th in sacks with 13, joint 3rd in forced fumbles with 3, joint 4th in tackles for loss at 14. My argument is, as I said on a podcast, either this podcast or another podcast recently, Parsons is that defense. And it was sort of the same when TJ Watt won it. TJ Watt was breaking records and was incredible for the Steelers, but he is that defense. Nick Bosa is incredible, and I think he's very relevant in the conversation. But you look at that defense around him, there is a lot of names on there. There is a lot of very, very good players. I think that certainly helps. Parsons, I think he is a single game wrecker for the Cowboys. I think this defense looks totally different without him. The way he has just gone from his rookie year, moving, I know he was like a linebacker sort of hybrid at college. They moved him at linebacker. They then moved him to edge rusher. He was so successful last year at edge rusher. Stuck with him at edge rusher this year. Yes, he has DeMarcus Lawrence on the other side, but he's an aging player. I think he looks very good at times because of Micah Parsons, because the focus is entirely on Micah. For a guy who's this young and can disturb the game this much for a Dallas defense, which I think is not as great as some people may think. I'm not saying we do at this table, but there is people in the world that do believe that. It has to be him. The threat he brings at the edge rushing position is just phenomenal. And it's sometimes, again, when we look at stats, when we look at the gameplay, we get lost in the stats, but his gameplay makes the offense fearful, the offensive line fearful, because they're coming up against a guy who is just that athletic, that strong, that diverse. And he won it last year, right? No, TJ Watt won it last year.
No, TJ Watt, he won the rookie one, didn't he?
He won the rookie one this year. Well, he won the rookie one last year. He's only when you've won the rookie of the year one, you've then, if you're going to then get in the conversation defensive player of the year, you have then got to then take the step up. I think this guy is maybe not taken to the heights of his step up, but we've got to remember he's only second year in. He is building and building and building where he could be one of the top edge threats for many years to come. He'll be when you talk about that class, he is going to be the next big paid player, I think, in terms of that position.
Yeah, it does feel like Parsons has slightly more of an impact on the Cowboys defense than what Bosa does on the 49ers. But that's more because the 49ers is just so good across the whole board. I
don't think it's slightly, though. I don't think it's slightly. I think Micah, you take Micah out of that defense, I don't see where the threat comes from. Whereas with San Francisco, if Bosa comes out, you've still got Fred Warner. You've still got Arik Armstead in the middle. You've got Chris Tart and players like that. They've got players all there that can really disrupt the offensive line. Whereas for me, I don't see the comparisons in the Cowboys defense of great guys all in it together in depth. And obviously the 49ers have that depth.
I mean, the one thing I would say is I think that Bosa is maybe a little bit more consistent. That's the one thing that I think he is. I mean, I remember watching this season when they played against us, and Parsons kind of didn't do that much in that particular game, and he does have a tendency to sort of disappear on the odd one or two games. Not anything serious, but like he does have a tendency to maybe not be 100% amazing all the time. Whereas for Bosa, I think he's pretty consistent every game and is a real threat every game. I think it is very much between the two of them, to be honest. There isn't really anyone else in this. Although I think the Raiders guy who got that touchdown, Chandler Jones, give it to him. I think that was impressive.
That is the only thing Chandler Jones has done this year. Yeah, that is like the only thing he's done this year. He's been such a bust at the Raiders, and the only thing he's done this year puts him into the conversation.
There you go. Why not? I mean,
so are you agreeing with me, Adam? You reckon Micah Parsons is going to win it?
Yeah, I think I probably would. It's really difficult because I tend to be a bit more of a stats sort of guy with it, but I do think that Parsons just is that bit more for that team than what Bosa is for the other one.
Andrew, who do you think? I know where you're going with this. I definitely know where you're going with this. Go on, after you.
Adam says stats, but I think betting odds lead Adam.
Damn right.
You know what? The first name I put down on the paper is the same name, but we're all hearing it's Parsons, isn't it? Parsons in it. Oh, didn't like that. That's bad. But I think there's a name that we're not mentioning because he's going to win Rookie of the Year. But Sauce Gardner's a shame that he's not going to be mentioned in that conversation.
Oh. I thought you were definitely going to go. I'm going to go really controversial and say Matt Judon. I thought you were going to go down to Matt Judon.
No, I did the same as you guys. Probably, I had a look at the stats. I had a look at I've seen what players have seen playing well, and it's the two names you said. I've got those two names. It's Parsons outright right for me, and Bosa. But the difference is you're judging people who play in slightly different positions. Bosa's all out sort of defensive end, and Parsons plays in that hybrid sort of on the edge / linebacker role. So he's got the more solo tackles and things like that. But the only other person I could think that was close to them was Hassan Reddick, in terms of stats. And he's just had more of those forced fumbles and things, which kind of projects him a little bit more. But Parsons stands out on single solo stats for me for it, and he is a difference maker. He is the absolute difference maker. So it's got to be Parsons, really, hasn't it? I don't think Bosa can compete with what Parsons does as a hybrid player.
Do you think, because I am definitely going to assume now, we'll go over it, but Defensive Rookie of the Year, I feel like we're all going Sauce Gardner. Do you think there is any possibility that Sauce wins both awards?
No.
Has that ever been done?
They'll make sure he doesn't.
Has that ever been done?
I don't think so, especially at the position we're looking at. Cornerback's not overly a big for it. I really don't know. You'd have to go back and have a look at the stats, but I'm guessing rookies aren't expected to come in and have the impact that Sauce Gardner's have at shutting down every single player that comes up against him. So, yeah.
Well, we'll move on to that because I mean he is first in passes defended. I'm speaking for the group for this Sauce Gardner, who's Defensive Rookie of the Year for all of us. I know it's going to be that. His first in passes defended with 16. He has 2 interceptions on the year. He's the only Jets rookie to have 10 plus breakups and 2 interceptions in their first 9 games since Darrelle Revis, that legendary cornerback. I read an article earlier. I tried to find the stats of receivers that he's played against, but I couldn't find an article at all. The only article I found was it was published on December 1st. So obviously, this is now inaccurate, but it was accurate at the time there. He only allowed 57 yards in man coverage. And he's also helped by the Jets defense. I have to admit, but I think the Jets defense is helped by him as well because the defense is 4th best in passing yards, 4th best in receiving touchdowns, 8th best in interceptions, 5th best on first down through passing as well. And he is, though that is Jets defense, I think he plays such a pivotal part in that, doesn't he, Andrew? Because he's just, the quarterbacks already are learning to fear him.
Yeah, and the fact that the people that he's been marking in the game, like solo, like coverage, he's not been double teamed. He's been doing it by himself. When you look at the fact it's been like Chase, Hill, Olave, like all the people, Diggs, it's all the names that we're putting in the conversation for Offensive Player of the Year. He's single coverage shutting them down. And I think that alone for a rookie is just phenomenal to pick it up that quick. And do what he's done and make the switch so quick. Yeah, you're not going to want to throw the ball near him. You're always going to overthink. We're not going to get value out of that. So you're going to, as a quarterback, you're going to look elsewhere as well, aren't you? Because it's proven. It's not a one-off. It's not like, he shut down Jamar Chase. That's it. No one else can do it. Anything against him. It's every single week, isn't it? He's proven. But just with your stats alone, of how many yards people have got against him, it's you can't go there. Like the cornerbacks of previous with Revis Island and stuff like that, you purposely don't go near them. So he's going to have that factor coming into next year as well, which is fantastic.
And Adam, I sort of alluded over the point a little bit, and this may be people's argument against Sauce is, does Sauce make defense, or is the defense making Sauce a little bit? Because, it does help, but does that really matter when it comes into these conversations with this sort of award?
Not really, I don't think. I think it's they all help each other, don't they? That's kind of how defensive teams work. It's like everyone kind of has to move in unison, otherwise it's all going to fall apart. So I think it's really difficult to come out and say anything else. But yeah, I think he's been easily, certainly at corner anyway, I think he's certainly been the best player around, and in fairness to him, probably does deserve a mention for the Defensive Player of the Year, but just won't get it. I think that Aiden Hutchinson's been good at Detroit, but obviously at the beginning of the season they struggled a lot on that defense, and they've sort of picked up a bit at the moment. And then finally, I think Andrew's guy, I think Thibodeau, has been very, very good in the last few weeks, and is showing that he's certainly going to be someone who's going to be around for a long time. But is obviously he had injuries, didn't he, at the beginning, and just missed too much time. So yeah, but I think I don't really see anyone other than Sauce getting it overall though.
It's a shame not to mention Tariq Woolen, just for what he's managed to do from being, what was he, a sixth round pick, leads the league in interceptions. I think that deserves props. I think maybe if Sauce hadn't have been played, he might be in the conversation with the likes of Hutchinson and Thibodeau as well. But I think he'll be overshadowed by the fact that Source has just been so dominant at that position.
Well, let's move on to Offensive Rookie of the Year. The hardest one for me, really hard. And if I'm really, really honest, if one of you makes a case that's better than who I've got, I'm siding with you, because I've not got a great. I've got an all right case, but I mean, Adam, we'll start with you. Offensive Rookie of the Year. Who do you think it's going to?
He's going to say Christian Watson, isn't he?
No.
Based on the last 4 weeks, I could definitely buy into that.
If Christian Watson had played the start of the season, then yeah, but it's a bit like Thibodeau, isn't it? It's the same sort of thing. He's missed too much time, so you can't really go for it. It's really difficult. I think I'm probably going to go Kenneth Walker. I think that Walker has been. I think everything that Seattle want to do, everything that Pete Carroll wants to do, is run the ball, and I think that he's been very, very good as that running back. I think he's made quite a strong impression. He has missed games though. That's the only thing that kind of puts me off. To be brutally honest, I don't really have much of a strong opinion on any of these guys as being the number one in this particular thing. I mean, Walker, I think he's done well. He's had 9 touchdowns, which I think is a decent amount for. I mean, you know, Saquon's had 9 touchdowns when it comes to just purely on rushing. So I think that Walker has done well there. Obviously, he hasn't played quite as much, but like I say, I think it's really difficult. There's a lot of guys here that it could go to, and I don't really have. I feel like there's no one you can go, that guy is definitely going to get it, which is not what the betting tells me at all, because the betting tells me there's only one guy that's going to get it. And I find that strange that Garrett Wilson is being chosen as the guy who's definitely going to win it in that Jets offense, where there's been times when he's been non-existent, not from his own fault, but from the quarterback. So I find that strange a little bit. And I suppose, because I know where that one over there is going, he's probably not far off, because he's been the most consistent.
I just point out all my points.
Do you want me to say so? Andrew was.
I know who will go. I knew he was going to go Chris Olave. I knew it. I knew he was going to go Chris Olave.
But yeah, I think for most consistent, I'd say him. For most breakout and just massive plays, but not played the whole season, you'd go Watson. I think Walker's been a very good running back. I just don't really have one particular guy, and I don't get Wilson being this big a favourite, I must say.
Colin and Andrew, tell us all about why Chris Olave is the front runner, the winner, the main man, except that he's an Ohio State alumni. That needs to be left out of the conversation.
I will leave that out of the conversation. Garrett Wilson also is from Ohio State. The favourite. Yeah. I was in the same boat as Adam with this. I looked at the list. I looked at the players of even people that he hasn't mentioned, and it's hard to split them because they all have had moments of brilliance and somewhat consistency with how well they've played at that position. And for me, the same as Adam, I could only base my award on consistency, and Olave's done it from week 1 all the way through to week 15. I think week 1 was his worst week. I think that's the least amount of yards he's got all season. He's had multiple over 100-yard games. He usually hovers around the 80 yards, 60 to 80 yards every single game. He looks to me to be already up there as one of the best route runners. I've seen him run routes that, a pro at the best of their position are doing. He's the same as Jefferson. You can say he's not been getting in the end zone as much as what you'd like to say for that position. But I think Garrett Wilson did go missing during the middle of the season, and it's only been the last 3 games, isn't it, that you kind of now go, oh yeah, well, look at it.
Well, it's Mike White, isn't it?
Yeah, don't I know it because I had him in fantasy, and he's just not. It's been different with every quarterback. He's had quarterbacks who preferred him. He's had quarterbacks for having, and it's been very confusing with him.
Equally, you could say the same for Kenneth Walker. Didn't explode straight onto the scene. Has gone missing in a couple of games that have shut down the run. Has had the injury issues and missed a bit of time. So I'm just surely going on who's been the most consistent and been dominant to a degree of yardage and receptions and catching, and that for me has been Olave for the whole year. So that's my reason for wanting to back him.
Can I just quickly say, so Wilson has had 4 more receptions over the season. He's had 26 more yards over the season.
And more touchdowns.
He's had 7. He's had 1 extra 20-plus gain compared to Olave, and he's had 1 touchdown more than Olave.
And apparently is the front runner.
Wilson is currently 2-5 favourite, and Olave is 10-1. Now I know we're not doing betting, but just letting everyone know.
Yeah, Garrett Wilson's had 6 games where he's gone missing, hasn't he? So he's just had a couple of bigger individual games. I think there was a few games where he's got under 20 yards, isn't there? There were 3 or 4 games where he's got under 20 yards.
But it's basically the same guy.
Yeah, well, you were hard to split
It's what you're saying.
No one's even mentioned the guy who I've got down.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
So, well, I was going to go. I was thinking about Drake. I was thinking about Drake London, just because I feel like every time I put the telly on and watch Red Zone, his name pops up for Atlanta.
Not for the middle part of the season.
No, yeah, he just didn't turn up either. And this guy, I suppose, is like Kenneth Walker, hasn't turned up in games. I think Damon Pierce gets a shout. That's my guy, just because I think, again, it's been really hard. It was really hard. I didn't believe. I looked at Wilson's stats and I was like, yeah, I get it. I looked at Olave's stats and thought, yeah, I get it. For a team that is so bad, he has singularly won them games. Won them 1 game and has kept them in some games. And I think has been really influential in the way that the Texans have played. And he's 9th in yards. He's 9th in rushing yards per game. He hasn't had enough touchdowns. He's had 4 touchdowns. So, that's where I can understand. But in terms of a guy who is really shining in a really bad team, and I'm sure it's not very hard to shine in a bad team, obviously. I just think there was at one point in the season, there was a moment where Damon Pierce was just making like these bullish, like plowing over people in these games, and was really doing really, really well for the Texans, the team that is poor. And I think it's probably because the team has been so poor that he won't get a look in. But in terms of a guy who could have, if he had a good offensive line in front of him and a better team in general, I think this guy is so far and so much better than the play he's been playing at the minute, because the whole team's just been bad. But in terms of influencing a team that can get better going forward, I think Damon Pierce is one of them guys.
Just a quick question for Adam. I know because he's probably got the betting odds in front of him, so he'll probably let me know. If Brock Purdy continues on the trajectory that he's currently on with the amount of games left, will he creep into the conversation?
Do the bet now is what I'd say.
Is there any odds for him? Are they creeping up? And do we think that if he stays on this trajectory, he should be trump these guys that have played all year?
If it wasn't the quarterback position, I'd say no.
Yeah, of course.
If it's the quarterback position, then why not? Then why not?
He's currently 14-1, so he's 5th in the betting.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, if he keeps winning, which, considering who they've got to play, I think is probably quite a strong possibility. Yeah, I mean, he might be put in there a bit more. Like, as we've all said, I mean, you look at these guys and they're all kind of similar. I mean, Watson's 15-2. He's 3rd favourite for this because of what he's done in such a short space of time. But yeah, I mean, Purdy is definitely there of a shout. I mean, it's so difficult, isn't it? When you
there's no one player that is there's no one player that's head and shoulders above. There's no.
Well, I feel certainly Wilson and Olave are pretty much the same person based on the stats anyway. I think Watson would have probably eclipsed both of them had he been fit. Walker, I think I get what you mean about Dameon Pierce, but I think Walker has definitely, certainly stats wise, has been a lot better. But like you say, Pierce in that Houston offense is probably much more a focal point for them. Yeah, I it's really difficult to come up with any firm conclusion on any of them. I mean, like I say, based on the betting, I'd say Wilson. But the fact that they're all very much of a muchness, you do wonder maybe Purdy might be the way forward. Just because I think the winning the division might sway it in his way. Whereas I think a lot of these other guys, they're not winning anything, are they? So
especially since he was the last pick as well of the whole draft.
Yeah, that's true.
And we have said that it is the last 3 games that Wilson's played that's moved him into that position. So if things can change for such a short period, then Purdy's got the time to do it.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on to Coach of the Year. I feel like you two are in agreement of who the Coach of the Year is, but Andrew, I'll start with you.
Are we?
I thought I heard you the other week agreeing on this and going for this, but you go.
Well, maybe. Oh, you know who I'm saying. I'm Brian Daboll.
Fair.
Why are you laughing at me? I think he deserves.
No, I don't disagree. I just thought you two were both going to say Mike Vrabel.
No, I think no. Well, he is just he's an insane coach and he's just unbelievable. But I think what Daboll's done at the Giants is no one expected. I mean, you could argue that Dan Campbell's done really well and Doug Peterson's done well, but we expected those teams to improve on what they did from last year. No one expected the Giants to improve, let alone beat the teams that they beat. I don't
think that's necessarily true.
I think people thought they were still just going to win. I think a lot of people, I was apparently over projecting when I said I think they can win 6 games. A lot of people had them 4 wins and under. I think they've me overachieving at 6, and they've smashed that already with 4 games left. So I think the culture that is provided, the way that the team goes out and plays every week and looks better, I think his whole team and him, I feel, deserve what they've done there to turn a franchise round that has struggled with coaches for multiple years. He's come in and done it in 1 year. I think you got to be in the tip your cap and say there's an award. Thank you very much.
Do you agree, Adam?
I think he's done very well. I wouldn't have him personally as my Coach of the Year because I think there's one team that's been more of a disaster over the years that really does feel like it's starting to turn around. I'm going to say I will be surprised if Nick Sirianni doesn't win it, just purely because of the Eagles' record and how well they've done. I personally wouldn't go there because I think a lot of that has been down to the GM, I have to say. I think he's done incredibly well. But Doug Peterson, for me, I think has done an unbelievable job at a team that has been, since they blew up in 2016, have been an absolute nightmare of a team, have done appallingly badly. Bringing in different coaches has been dreadful. And I really don't think you can sort of, you have to say how bad that was last year with Urban Meyer and what a disaster that truly was, and how that could have killed a rookie quarterback. That really could have done. And yet you've brought in this experienced head who's won it all before, has got the dressing room completely on side, has been able to basically chat to Lawrence all the way through and help him out all the way through. And now you're starting to see the benefit of it. And I don't know if they'll get in. They might be a little bit too far away. but they're going to be pretty close to a playoff spot. And the idea that team could be anywhere near a playoff spot before Peterson turned up is mental. So he won't win it because it's not a fancy name, and it's not someone who is at the top of the table kind of thing. But for me, I think he's been great.
It's interesting because none of us have really gone any Eagles this, considering they are the best team in the NFL at the minute.
Well, you can't give the trophy to Harry Roseman, can you? You know.
No.
To no surprise to anyone, my coach of the year is my main man. Yeah, Dan Campbell. The dude has turned this franchise around. You talk about a franchise in the dust. Detroit Lions were in the dust. No one believed in Goff. No one believed in anything that was going on there. They tried to do the culture change last year. We saw the culture sort of change, but the results weren't coming. It felt like it was going to happen again this year at the start of the year. But no, the team has turned mid-season. And the Jags have done that as well. The Jags have turned mid-season and have become this real force. And I think Doug Peterson's a massive shout for it. And I think Brian Daboll is as well, because they've all three of them have turned franchises around, but were in despair. And really, maybe Daboll was doing it with a team that has not changed entirely that much, I suppose, in terms of bringing players in. A few players have gone, but he's also had injuries like every coach has had. But Peterson had brought players in, Kirk, players like that, good draft. So the Giants had a good draft. The Lions had a good draft. They didn't really bring that many players in either. I just think that this guy's just changed everything about Detroit. And this team just felt like nothing. And even though they are maybe not a complete team yet, I think that he's just been so influential. I think this team is not the same team without him. And we talked about the other week, the coach fitting the franchise. This coach is Detroit. This coach is Michigan. And this coach is a Lion. And that's why I would definitely have him there. Comeback player of the year. The player of the year. That's Fred, definitely not how anyone. Before you quickly
mention the comeback player of the year, I know Adam briefly mentioned Nick Sirianni being lead out for him. I just wanted to get your guys' take on a coach that we've not mentioned, and I don't think he's being mentioned because he coaches a good team. But do you guys think that Kyle Shanahan should be in the conversation, considering he's on his third quarterback, lost players due to injury, and still coming out on top?
Again, though, should there be an award for a GM? Because look how much depth that squad has. Like, he's done them fantastic. Don't get me wrong. Losing Trey Lance, who was like, they named as a starter. They were going to lose Garoppolo, trade Garoppolo. Lance goes down. They keep it's been really turbulent there for them. Debo, I don't want to be a running back. Use me in the correct way. He resigns, luckily. Brock Purdy's looking great. But there's so much depth. That's also a GM thing, I suppose, as well, when we talk about the Eagles, with terms of like the depth. But Shanahan, the thing with Shanahan is we know he's a genius. We know he's incredible. And really, I think for coach of the year, it's maybe somewhat times a coach that maybe people didn't see as being a success with that team, maybe. I don't know what you think, Adam.
Yeah, I mean, he's a quality coach. To be honest, he probably is the best in the NFL at the moment. The way that he coaches that team, it's so much of it is scheme. It really is, and that's why I feel like it doesn't matter who the quarterback is. It doesn't matter who the players are to a certain extent. It is the coach and the scheme that is making that such a success. Yeah, he certainly deserves to be in there. I don't know. I suppose we've kind of gone for stories, haven't we? And improvement.
All three of us.
Yeah.
The underdog.
Yeah.
Coaches, we? So
maybe that's a Brit thing.
Yeah.
If anything, you're right. If Shanahan should win it for the fact that he's had 3 starting quarterbacks this year, and none of which is him dropping and moving it around. It's just through injury. But let's move on to comeback player of the year. Adam, I'm going to start with you because then I think Andrew's going to be hoping that you say the right guy. So, Adam, I'll start with you.
Well, his right guy ain't winning it. So, this is really difficult, isn't it, when it's just the season? Do you not find this is really difficult when it's just the season?
It is. I agree that it's difficult with the two names that I'm guessing most people are going to pick between. I think it's difficult to measure their stories, because it's a comeback is a story, isn't it? It's not.
I don't. I the one name that I've seen knocking around, and I don't think it is a comeback story or anything like that, is Geno Smith, because Geno has been in the league a long time without injury, just been a backup, and yeah, he has been succeeding with Seattle. I agree, but this really is the comeback player from last season. Well, really, that's the player that did Naffle. Well, I don't know, because Geno Smith also did Naffle, I suppose, but
he's favourite to win it. He is favourite to win it. So I think McCaffrey, personally. I think that he's been a real difference maker for the 49ers. And I think that's why, I know I've just said with scheme, and a lot of it is scheme, but I think that he really is just a cut above when it comes to running backs. And I think because of that, it's such a safety blanket for the quarterback, no matter who you are. And I think that's going to make so much difference for him. And maybe I'm looking at it further than just the season, because I think it will make a massive impact in the playoffs as well. And that's kind of not what this is. But I think again, I don't really have a massive opinion on it, on any of these guys that are in it. But yeah, I think McCaffrey's probably, statistically anyway, probably going to have the most impact on the team, and that team is probably going to have a very good shout at getting to the Super Bowl.
Don't worry, Andrew. I'll speak on behalf of New York Giants fans everywhere. This should be Saquon Barkley. It should definitely be Saquon Barkley. I'm going to stick up with Andrew, the Giants fan. Saquon Barkley, 4th in yards, 8th in touchdowns, 3rd in attempts, 5th in first downs gained, 4th in yards per game. McCaffrey, he's got Debo, he's got Kittle, he's got a great O-line. What's Saquon got? Danny Dimes. That's it. Kenny Golladay. Sterling Shepard. Darius Slayton. Nobodies. That's who Saquon's got. When you talk about a great coach, and you talk about a player that puts the team on his back, Saquon Barkley has put the Giants on his back and has come back after injury after injury, after bad year after bad year, just like McCaffrey, I have to admit. But Barkley I talk about Damon Pierce being the shining star of the Texans. Like, Saquon is this shining star, the Northern Star, some may say, in Christmas times that we are in, for this New York Giants team. Andrew, tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong.
No, definitely not. I had Saquon written clearly down there. I'm fully agreeant with what Freddie tried to mention at the start of this conversation with Geno Smith, for me, is most surprising player, not comeback.
Yeah.
He's not come. Like he said, he has not come back.
He ain't been anywhere. He ain't been anywhere to come back from.
He's just really shocked and surprised us how well he's done where he is. And again, I suppose there's not a who surprised you the most award, so it's got to go into comeback player. And what he's done with that team and the stats, he's got to be in the conversation. It's the only place who can do it. But before the season started, there was only 2 people in the conversation. It was either going to be McCaffrey or Saquon. One of them was going to get it. So for me, they are the comeback stories. And I just feel Saquon has done more of a comeback. Both of them were talked about being traded before the season started. Everyone was out on Saquon completely. People thought McCaffrey was going to bounce back. There were so many question marks over this guy, and he answered all of those questions with fantastic stats and play. And Adam, you've said it yourself. He is the Giants, isn't he, at the minute?
Absolutely.
And when you look at the way that the 49ers kind of use McCaffrey, they rest him and they use him sensibly, and they bring him to the Giants. Just go, no, there you go, there's the ball. We don't care. You're a beast. So
that's it. That is also because you have 0 wide receiver. There is nobody else.
we've got superstar Isaiah Hodgins and Richie James. What are you on about? Absolute superstars.
And both of them stood on top of each other, couldn't hit 6'1", could they? Bless them.
But Yeah, Saquon Barkley. Sure, I cashed out. I had him before the season started, and I cashed out for. I think I got 45 quid on it. I only had a $5 on it, and I'm so glad I did because
he's not winning it.
he's third favourite, isn't he?
Fourth.
Who else is going to above him now?
Who else is in there? Deshaun Watson.
No, that would be hilarious.
Nick Gates.
Geno Smith is favourite. Christian McCaffrey second. Jared Goff.
He's not been anywhere.
That's not.
He's not been in.
Well, he literally started every game for them last year.
No, wait. Was he injured last year? Didn't he dislocate his thumb? Didn't he break his thumb?
I mean,
I think it was more that he's come back from being a Super Bowl quarterback to an absolute disaster to actually being okay again. I think is the logic behind it. What do you think? Because there's two other names in there, and they are both very like long shots. There's Derrick Henry, and then finally Nick Gates.
Oh, I just mentioned it, Nick Gates. Yes,
I'm trying. Nick Gates is the Giants player, right? No.
Yes. Came back from what everyone thought would be him never playing again.
Oh, really? I don't know his story, to be honest with you.
Did you not watch the game where he got injured? It was very heavily televised, that injury. So.
Oh yeah, I don't know. I do recall it. I mean, that's not the
That's a comeback. No one thought he was going to play this year. No one thought he was going to play this year, and came back and has picked up where he left off. And our O-line he's moved around it as well. He's played centre and at guard because we've had Feliciano as well. So he's never going to win it, is he? No one's ever talking.
No.
Come back for an O-lineman, but I think it's just because the fact people thought he might never play again, and he's back on the field. So. Fantastic.
That is when we talk about stories, because a lot of the guys we picked today are definitely stories. Like a lot of them, we have gone for that underdog thing a little bit in some of these awards. But Nick Gates is a story. I mean, that is sensational. I remember it's flooding back to me now, the injury, and I remember the televised and everything like that. It is flooding back to me. So that is pretty sensational. I mean, I saw names when I was reading our score like Khalil Mack. Which I think Derrick Henry wasn't out for long enough last year. Like he wasn't out like the whole year. Like let's be honest, when it got to week 3 and Barkley and McCaffrey were still playing, we were all shocked. Like we were all like, surely they're going to go down at some point. This happens every year. They get like 3 games in and then they get injured. Especially like fantasy players as well. I'm sure they were, every week was like, oh, it's just another week. It's another week. I never had another week of them playing before, especially for Giants fans and for, Panthers fans and now 49ers fans. But really interesting, the awards there. Really great fun as well. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Adam, for coming on tonight. Thank you. It has been a little bit longer, but we have had a lot of awards and a lot of debate to talk about. Let us know in the comments after this on all social media platforms who you believe some of these awards should go to and what you think about our suggestions for the people who have won them. Make sure you like and subscribe to us. Lots of going on the F-Tag this week. So like we said, busy week before Christmas. We've got the fantasy show tomorrow. We've got the Sunday preview / betting on a Thursday before Christmas, obviously happening on the Sunday. So until then, make sure you watch all our shows this week, and we'll see you all again very soon.